Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It is becoming winter over here, especially where I am in the UK. I don't know where my co-host Fiona up in the Isles of Scotland with your haggis. How cold is it over there?
It's Baltic. I'm actually sitting with a blanket over my knees right now, like an old woman.
That's generally the summer in the UK, let alone the winter or the autumn that we're in now. But anyway, enough about us. Let's say hello to our guest. Now, we last saw our guest Fee, cool, probably on an NWA taping, and maybe last year, I would have think. But anyway, let's find out everything that it's about, what he's been up to since then. It is the man himself, Mr. Psycho Boy Fodder. How are you?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me on. And it's getting cold here too. It's starting to the temperature's starting to drop a little bit. This is right about where I like it though, like around like 69 degrees. It's
Yeah.
That's pleasant.
perfect. You can
Well,
do
it's
you
not
can do
too
the
bad.
shorts or you can do pants or you can do jacket or no jacket,
Yeah, it's getting to a bit more of the winter stage, I think now. Definitely, I heard the other day I was on vacation last week, and they were saying it was going to be cold enough to have ice on the car, and that's
Oh
not
yeah, that's
that's no chance. England are never prepared for winter, no matter every year it's the same stuff. One thing happens, bang, the whole country comes to a standstill. But anyway, like we were saying, last time we saw you, we was on NWA Power. What has been going on in your world since then?
man, I mean, a little bit of everything. I mean, doing probably everything under the sun, man. I mean, when we departed from NWA. That was right before like the 75 pay-per-view.
Yep.
Um, man, I mean, we've just been doing just tons of indies. I mean, it seems like we're just on an indie like once or twice a week every week. So I mean, just staying very active on the scene, obviously like doing a lot of interview, doing a lot of press, and then just seeing where the next places that will land.
Yeah, definitely. So I was obviously, as we try to do, try to be professional and do a bit of research, that you recently wrestled Bully Ray not too
Yeah.
long ago. How was that? What was that experience like wrestling a legend like Bully Ray?
Oh man, it was tons of fun. I mean that crowd that was there, that match kind of culminated from like a storyline that I was doing at AML Wrestling with Brian Hawks. He's one of the guys that runs the company. He's like the general manager on screen, does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And it was just I attacked him. If the storyline even kind of furthers itself back a little bit to WrestleCade,
Mm.
where we worked a 6-man tag at WrestleCade last year. Me, Angelina, and EC3 wrestled Matt Cardona, Steph Delander, and Brad Attitude. I turned on EC3 there, and then me and him wrestled for
Yeah.
the NWA World Title the next day. And he's the one who overturned the decision of me winning the belt, right? So it kind of starts there. I attack him in February. I get suspended. I come back. Me and John Schuyler from TNA work a tag where we beat the Outrunners. And then it kind of turned into like the ECW originals, the summer of the ECW originals. So I worked Too Cold Scorpio, and then I worked Rhino and Tommy Dreamer, and then Bubba was kind of like the final boss.
I love it.
And having Brian Hawks was the special guest referee for the match. So I mean, it was I mean, I think there were like 1,500 people there at that show. So I mean, it was really slammed. I have the match up on my YouTube, and man, I mean, the crowd was just berserko the whole time. And it was just, man, I mean, Bully's a lot of fun. He's very cool. Me and him get along great. And just kind of the way we put the match together, and then doing all of the like the legendary Dudley Boy spots. He did the what's up, like with Brian Hawks, the referee, on me. And I mean, the fans loved it. And obviously, Bully goes over in the end because baby faces need to be up. And it was a great experience, and I definitely learned a lot from Bubba. There's a wrestling is a business where even when you're very good at what you do, you can always learn more.
Yeah, I was going to say that you mentioned all the great ECW names, legends that you actually wrestled. I'm actually seeing Rhino this coming Sunday. Actually, I'm going. He's coming over to Wales in the UK for a show, and I'm popping over there with him and EY is going to be there.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. But when you're working with those guys, and you mentioned that you can be brilliant at your craft, but there's always time to learn and be a sponge. And do you think you gained a lot from wrestling those sort of legends from the past? Maybe added something different to what you had to do, or a different part of a story that perhaps have to be told.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I mean, like I think just like my rise in wrestling just came from my mentality of like, I mean, I didn't get into wrestling until I was 33 years old.
Mm.
So that's a very late start to get into wrestling. And once I kind of got into it, I had met a lot of guys through EC3 because he's a very good friend of mine. And my philosophy was is that I'm 33 now. Before you know it, you'll be 40. And it's like, if I'm going to do something with this, like I have to get sped up very
Mhm.
quickly. So like when I got into wrestling, I didn't even know anything about like indies. Like, I just knew WWF, WCW, that's what I grew up watching. And my mentality coming in was just like, if I want to get good really fast, then all I need to wrestle is guys that work on TV. So once I found out that I could bring guys in myself, there was no indie promotion um, anywhere that was going to tell me no if I told them like, hey, look, like I'll bring this guy in. Me and him will work the match on your card and you keep all the money off the ticket sales and I'll cover his fee and I'll cover his flight and he'll just stay at my house. Right. And then I would just bring my camera crew in there to film the match so that once I got the match uploaded on YouTube or, whatever digital platform I was putting on, when people would look for that particular wrestler, then they would find me in the recommended search bars like on YouTube and stuff like that. And that's how I built a lot of audience. So, and it's also of the same mentality, right? That like perception is reality, right? So if you want people to see you as a TV wrestler, then all you need to do is just wrestle guys on TV. And then eventually that kind of like you get the match with the name and you get the notoriety of working the guy with the name, right? So you get the rub off of him, but then you also get the experience of working with the TV guy in the ring and learning all kinds of things like pacing and how to talk and how to slow down and when to pick up the pace. And that's what I think got me very good very fast, was just working just guys like that, man, who had a name and been doing it for a long time.
Interesting, interesting. Fee, go ahead. Go on.
No, I was saying you talked obviously a lot about the indies, and you're there working a lot of the indies over in the USA. Now, over here, the indie scene is booming at the moment. Like, there's an awful lot going on in the UK. What's the kind of scene like over there where you are at the moment? Is it quite concentrated, or is it quite nicely kind of dispersed about so that there's not too much in one space?
No, I mean I mean in like just indies in general are just, man, it's huge in the United States. And it's mainly big now, because like guys that are working at like MLW or TNA or NWA or AEW, all those people can go take indie bookings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So now you don't have to wait till, AEW comes to town to see, I don't know, I'm just using like Brian Cage, right? Like Brian Cage might be on an indie in Philly.
Yeah.
So and you can go see him work at an indie. So I think with like you have like your condensed, what I would call like your really big indies that draw big.
Mhm.
And like AML, like they draw big, man. I mean, they're drawing 700 to 1,000 people at every show,
That's nice.
and they run once a month, and all their shows are big. Like they always have like a legend there that's doing a sign in, and they always have like one or two guys that are TV guys that are working actually wrestling on the show.
Right.
So you know, companies like that, like I'd say like AML, Wrestling Revolver, like Prestige Wrestling, DPW. I mean, there's a lot of them that are kind of like spread out like throughout the United States, and those are like your really big indies. And then you have like your medium-sized indies, man, that draw like 400 or 500 people at a show. Those are still great indies to work
And that's still
because
a great crowd as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
That, I
Um,
mean, that size of crowds, I know a lot of companies in the UK would love to have a crowd with 400, 500 folk at it.
Oh,
So,
sure, sure. And there's a lot of companies here, like one company that I work for a lot was Extreme World Wrestling. I mean, they draw 400 or 500. Me and Tommy Dreamer wrestled there. I mean, they draw 400 or 500 people there at pretty much every show they do. So I mean, it's like, and indie wrestling is really hot in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, very, very hot in the Southeast too.
Yeah, the I mean, obviously, I know previously at the NWA, now the territory system has now sort of begun again, and they're doing a lot of different
Yeah.
EC3, for example. Exodus Pro is in there, and Crossfire Wrestling from the Paces is that also a good way of? Actually, it's quite a good thing for the NWA to do, but it's also a good way for younger talent to, as you say, get those television matches against those television stars. Like EC3 will go and wrestle somebody, maybe one of the up and comers on Exodus Pro, and he'll get that rub from working with EC3, which could lead to potentially appearing on an episode of Power, for argument's sake.
Correct. Exactly. Oh yeah, most definitely, man. And I mean, I always tell people like getting a job, like working on television, it's not about who you know, it's about who's willing to say they know you.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, right? So like when I got hired at NWA, there were lots of people there that were recommending me to work there before I ever even came in the building. I mean, Ricky Morton, Kerry Morton, EC3, Johnny Swinger. I mean, there were lots of guys there that I had already worked and that I already knew that were telling Pat Kenny and Billy, like, you need to bring this guy in. And like, I did one tryout match at NWA and they ended up airing that match on their television show, which was just a tryout match.
yeah.
And after I did that match, I wrestled this guy Joe Ocasio, who's a very good worker. He's from the Northeast, and they basically like hired me right when I came to the back from the match.
Wow, interesting time. And now, obviously, you do have the Psycho Love, which is you and your
Yeah.
lovely wife Angelina. Is that good also because obviously you now live with your wife and you get to work with her at the independent shows. How is it when you're doing those type of matches though? Because you mentioned it before, you wrestled at Steph Delander and Matt Cardona and these sort of intergender matches. It's a little bit, I suppose, a little bit more controversial on some of the mainstream shows, WWE, maybe an AEW as such. You don't see that very often, or when you do, it's like when you tag the female, the other female has to come in. And we sponsor a team over here in the UK who are a male and female team, and they get in there with female, predominantly male teams, and just wrestle. Is that what do you think that obviously I know there's sponsorship involved and all that stuff, but should it be that way? If a male and a female team, should they be able to go against two males, a male and a female, or a female team, in your opinion?
Man, I mean, I think that's like wrestler's discretion type
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah,
Like when like NWA never did mixed tags until we started doing
yeah,
the
Mm.
Psycho Love stuff,
Yeah.
right? So when we were doing mixed tags, one thing that we had a lot of experience doing when we came and when we were doing indies is like a lot of people want to do mixed tags with us. And I think, man, it just depends on like to like like what kind of crowd is it too that's
Mm.
there, right? So a lot of the NWA stuff, right, was and I think TNA was this way back when Lauren was working there, was that like they didn't want any guy on girl
Mm.
anything like
Mm.
and I think that that's just like it's kind of up to the wrestlers on whether they want to
Yeah.
do that or not. We typically don't do it
Mm.
just because like if it's a show and there's like a lot of kids in the crowd
Yeah.
and things like that, maybe that's not the best place to do it, like in front of like children and things like that. But if it's like an adult
Yeah.
crowd, like just an all like 21 and above, like, and
Yeah.
everybody understands like what's going on and what's happening in the ring, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might be a different scenario.
Yeah, because it's obviously perception, isn't it? At that point, a kid at a young age watches that and thinks, "Oh, we can," that's kind of allowed,
Yeah. Oh, I can do that when I go to school or whatever.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That is true. Fee, go on. You was
Although, no, I was just going to say there's been quite a few kind of intergender matches over in Scotland lately, and the crowd have actually really got into them, but it is very much a kind of split camp. There's a lot of people who are on the no, intergender wrestling shouldn't be a thing, and there's a lot, and the other camp's kind of like, no, this is great. It's showcasing that you can work anybody basically.
Sure, sure.
regardless of size or sex or whatever. So
Right.
and I've seen a couple of really good matches lately, actually, and I've kind of enjoyed them. And I had been kind of on the fence about it, and I was like, I'm not sure, but I've seen a couple lately that have kind of put me on that, yeah, I'm in that camp sort of thing. I'm
Well,
enjoying it.
and one thing too is that, when you're forced to work the match where it's just guy on guy and girl on girl and like those tags are happening, it forces you to really think outside of the box because you have to figure out how to get to a finish without a guy running a comeback on both of the other participants that are in the match. And I mean, so there's a lot of creativity that you have to pull out of the wrestlers too, to figure out how to get from point A to B to C to the finish, without involving two of the competitors with each other.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting why you have to work and but just a quick change of subject. You are the I think you're still the RWA heavyweight champion, or just
Yes. Uh-huh.
NWA, which is great. Holding titles in independence now, is it kind of, because obviously we've seen quote unquote belt collectors and everyone's sort of holding. There's a lady over here called Nina Samuels, and she's got like 12 titles, and it's like a picture of her holding she's got titles everywhere. But is because obviously it's still an important thing holding a title on an independent show, because being the heavyweight champion there means you're technically the person that puts the bums in the seats, right? That's they want to come and see the heavyweight champion. So do you still feel that added pressure on an independent show being their world champion, even though it's not necessarily a television taping?
Well, I mean, so for me, like, because I bring my camera crew with me
Yeah,
everywhere, all the matches get filmed and they're all going on my YouTube channel,
yeah,
right? And like with my YouTube channel, like matches can get like 5, 10, 15,000 views on a match. So, I want every match to be very good.
hmm,
Um, which if you're a stickler like me for details and wanting everything to be right and everything to look super professional, and you just want to come off in a certain way, matches need to be good.
hmm.
So I'm very big on the matches being good. But one thing about it is, if somebody's going to put the belt on you, then they feel like you are a person that I guess the fans would look at like as like, okay, like he's a top guy,
Mhm.
right? Like I worked on an indie and there was some things that had got changed on an indie. This was maybe 6 months ago.
Hmm.
And they asked me to work somebody different because one guy pulled out. And the guy came to me and he was like, this was the promoter that had came to me. And he said, hey, look, man, like this is the only guy that I could get. It's like last minute. I mean, 24 hours before the show. He goes, the fans don't view this guy as a top guy, but I know you'll make it work, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm like, no problem. And we had a fine match and everything, but you want the promoters to view you as a draw too, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there that you bring in your YouTube people, your YouTube crew there, and everything like that. You record every match. Do you go back and study the matches that you tape to see, if there was certain bits of the match that worked, maybe some of it wasn't quite right? Do you go back and watch the matches?
Oh yeah, 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 all the time.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I mean, like, I probably watch like just for me, like just watching wrestling, like for study. I mean, I probably watch 3, 4 matches a day. Like, when I get up in the morning, I might get up at like 7, and I got my treadmill over here in this section of the house, and I just cut the TV on, and I'll go on YouTube and I'll find, I'm gonna watch 4 Brian Pillman matches today or whatever, right? Just and you just there's so much stuff from you know that 93, 94, 95, 96 era of WWF, WCW. I mean, there's so much stuff you can take from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just different spots in matches, and you go like, ooh, like that's a good spot, like that works here. And I can use that, when I work this guy right here, that might be like a great spot. And it makes wrestling a lot easier too, because when I watch wrestling, I don't really watch wrestling for like moves.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that are like they're big on just like moves. I'm more watching for like pace, Like
Okay.
when do they get into, if Benoit's wrestling Eddie Guerrero, like how did they start? How did he get out of, the chin lock, and what spot did they go into? When did they get into these, the run spots or an outside spot or whatever? All those are the things that you can learn. I mean, if you're just going in there and you're just doing moves, 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 moves. I mean, man, I have seen, we have been on so many shows where guys go out there, they do 1,000 things, man, and the people are they just sit there with no reaction at all.
And I think that's hard because then if someone comes on next, they've seen it all before already, so they're not doing a move that maybe they're doing a move or in the following match that they've just seen, which would under other circumstances be like, wow. But the
The,
what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it takes the shine off it almost a little bit.
well, I mean, like I'd say like 90% of the time now, I am always working in the main event.
Mhm.
And one of the things I always tell the guy, whoever I'm working with, is I go, dude, by the time we go out there, they have seen every wrestling move that can be done.
Yeah.
Right? Like we got to go out there and tell a story. And probably like one of the best, like I think one of the best examples of just a storytelling match is if you just watch me and Bubba. Like there's not a lot going on in the match in terms of like the physical stuff.
Yeah.
It's all about crowd reaction and crowd interaction, and just you feeding off the people and the people feeding off you. And when you figure out how to do that, now you can cut 50% of the stuff that you were going to do in the match.
Yeah.
Because, it's like I would tell anybody, you can kick a guy once or you can kick him 5 times. But if you kick me 5 times, which one of them do you want me to sell for you?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Kick me once and go to the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite amazing you said that because I've just finished an interview with Demolition, Axe and Smash.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying that they was watching a match, they got sent a match or they got tagged in something on YouTube. And I'm not going to say what match it was, 'cause it was kind of happened probably at the weekend, but there was 3 minutes of literally what they call gymnastics in terms of there was a lot of, loads, about 100 miles an hour, loads of different moves. And they were like, it's all about, and you've mentioned it, pace and when to do said moves. And, and of course, the other thing that we spoke about was in that match, it was a lot of, and I hate it, no selling moves. Certain moves I can understand that you sell and stuff like that. But when they're no selling moves, and sorry, I'm going to say it, I was watching Will Ospreay, Ricochet, and Takeshita at the weekend, and I loved them. I thought the match was great. There was a sequence in that match of about 30 seconds where they just no sold German suplexes, poison ramas, all the moves that you'd sit there at home and go, shit, when you watch it live, or when I've watched it live and I've gone,
Sure.
oh my God, because of the impact of the move, and then no selling it. And for me and for Demolition, they were like, you've just killed so many moves in one go. Because now when I look at a poison Rama now, I look at it totally differently because I'm like, well, Will Ospreay just rolled out of that. So that's now the move.
One thing that's interesting, and like all three of those brothers are incredibly
They are.
talented,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I look at guys like that, and I did an interview, I don't know, this was maybe like a year ago, but I was just talking about like a Will Ospreay or like Young Bucks, like all those guys, man. Dude, those guys do things that I could literally never do.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure there's some stuff I could do if I really practiced it, but I mean, like, I got one of those just like bodybuilder bodies, and like, I just don't bend that way for like a lot of stuff. I'm just not like that flexible. Me and Skylar were doing a tag match this weekend, and me and him have been kind of doing a couple tags lately, just like testing out some stuff. And he goes, I'd like to do this spot where like you're on the apron and I'll tell you, put up a boot. And, like the guy puts his boot up and you run his head into the boot or whatever. And I go, man, I don't think I can get my leg up over the top rope. And he goes, well, just put it on the middle rope. That'll be even funnier. Right. So I just put it on the middle rope, but there's just like the stuff that those guys do is absolutely amazing. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that there's like there's a place for the crazy deathmatch wrestling, and then there's like there's a place for like the kind of wrestling they do too, right?
Yeah.
And there's like just so many different like styles of wrestling. So I always say like my favorite kind of wrestling is 1996 WWF.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's my favorite kind of wrestling because that's what I grew up watching.
Sure.
And that may be, I mean, like, there's a lot of guys that say like my favorite style of wrestling is like when Harley Race was wrestling in NWA,
Yeah.
right? And that may be what they grew up watching. Now like the younger generation, like they're watching like the Will Ospreys and like all those guys, right? So like they want to kind of emulate that style. The styles I want to emulate are like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, um, gosh, man, there's just so many guys, Razor Ramon. I mean, there's just Double J, Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
That was a good era of wrestling, to be fair.
Oh, to me, that was the best wrestling, man. I mean, like, that was when I grew up watching wrestling. Like, I didn't even know what dirt sheets were until like maybe like, man, like 98 or 99. When I literally like did not figure out that like wrestling was a work until I was on the internet looking for something wrestling based, and I found WrestleZone, the website.
Yes.
Mhm.
And they were talking about like, oh, well, like the plan is for like this guy to beat this guy and like whatever. And I was just like I remember
mind
looking at it
blowing.
like that can't be real. But it's just the South has a specific style of wrestling too.
Mm.
And I think the North in the United States has a specific style of wrestling. The Northern wrestling is like a lot more spots, a lot faster.
Mhm.
Southern wrestling is not slow, but it's much more paced
Yeah.
than the quick boom, 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 boom.
Indeed. I think I agree with that. Fee, as we're getting close to time now, I always give you the last
The
question.
last
So
question.
pressure's on you. Make it good and fire away.
No, not really a question as such, but you kind of touched on it a minute ago. You were saying you've got the bodybuilder body, for your wrestling. Is that something that you're still doing? I know that you've done competitions in the past and stuff. Are you still into the bodybuilding side of things, or are you really just more kind of concentrating on the wrestling just now?
So I do like I eat my diet just like if I was getting ready for a bodybuilding show. Because obviously like how you look on camera, they care about that a great deal. And I think now I'm just to a point where it's like, if I can just maintain the way that I look now, work out, eat right, wrestling's a lot more fun than bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is one of those things where like when you're doing it, I always tell everybody too that like you should at least do one bodybuilding competition in your lifetime because it teaches you incredible discipline.
Mhm.
Like when you can't just go to the refrigerator and open it and have anything you want, and the discipline that you learn from controlling what you eat, it radiates through the rest of your life. And all of a sudden you have control over lots of things, and you're like, well, like if I can, control what I eat. I can control this, I can control that. A lot of areas in people's lives where they think like, oh, I don't have any control. You start to realize like, actually, I do have control of that. And I can, take things and do the best I can with them. But wrestling now is just like pays a lot better. It's a lot funner. Just me and my wife, we do everything together. So I'm very happy doing the wrestling now.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's great to see for sure. Before we start wrapping up, Fodder, tell everybody where can they find you on social media? Tell them about YouTube channel and what you've got coming up in terms of action.
Yep. So youtube.com/Psycho Boy Fodder. New matches that I got coming up. I got one with O'Shea Edwards, me and George South. There'll be that tag match with Skylar that I was just talking about. One with me and Shannon Moore from 3 Count.
Yes.
Man, and I'll have to think, man. I got a lot of matches on deck. And then we got WrestleCade coming up.
Yeah.
The big WrestleCade Super Show. So I'm sure we'll be working on the Super Show again this year and the Super Show the next day, which is the day after Super Show. November 12th, we're in Joppa, Maryland for the Fan Jam, doing a sign in there. So we hope to see everybody there. And, hopefully we'll make it over to the UK or Scotland or something like that. We want to come over there. We just tell the guys that contact us, like, man, we can't travel like 8 hours to come there for like
For
one
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 show.
You got
show.
to do
You
it.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we need like 3 or 4 shows, like 3 or 4 days worth of stuff to do, and then we can make it work. So, and then my socials, it's at LOKEYS 910 for everything.
There you go. And yes, if you do make it over here, we actually have a championship that you could come from, try and prize up our champions' hands. If
I'm down, man. I'm down for it. What's the name of the promotion?
So the championship is at Ignite Wrestle Pro over. It's just on the outskirts of London, and our championship there's a turnbuckle championship. But if obviously Angelina fancies some gold, there is also Apex Wrestling in Milton Keynes where we have our women's champion. So
Oh man,
you
yeah.
could
I mean, we might have to get over there, bro.
exactly, and you could maybe return to America with some gold around
Oh,
your
I'm
waist,
down, man.
or even more around your waist. But Fodder, it's been a whirlwind half an hour. It's been really great to talk to you. We wish you and Angelina the best of luck. You'll just find out you've got a new subscriber on YouTube. So hitting the turnbuckle have just subscribed to your YouTube channel. So
I'll follow you guys back. I'll make sure I do that.
we'll keep you there for sure. But yeah, and hopefully we'll see you over here in the UK. We wish you both all the best of luck, and obviously congratulations on recently celebrating 1 year as a married couple.
Hey, man, thank you guys very much for having us, and we appreciate all the kind words, man. If you want us to come back on anytime, let us know.
We will do.
Absolutely.
We will do for sure. But Fee, we'll see you back here, I guess, tomorrow at time of recordings. We're going to be doing NWA tomorrow, reviewing Power. I've also got, as I said, thanks to Demolition, thanks to Vince Russo, and also thanks to Eric Bischoff for next week coming to join us on the show again. We'll be speaking to Eric Bischoff. Check out the interview with Vince Russo. That was great. Demolition is dropping as we hit the NWA record button tomorrow. But until next time, everybody, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, Adam Cousins, with Fiona Lockren, and with the man below us, Psycho Boy Fodder. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.